So we're all excited about it, and I hope that you guys are. Does everybody think it looks great? As always, we'll start out with our pledge and prayer, and we've got a treat for you tonight. We have Troop 132 Webelos here with us tonight to do our pledge, and before we do that, we've got Commissioner Chris Allison, which will do our prayer to start.
Let us pray. Dear God, thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. We just ask for your guidance and the decisions that we made for the citizens of McDowell County, for the betterment of the people. And we just ask you to keep a hedge of protection about our people, and that we'll go safely home each and every day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. We'll do our pledge. If you're a veteran, you will do regulation salute.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
Thank y'all for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a treat, wasn't it? Okay, very much for approving minutes.
So moved.
Second. Motion second, any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Move the agenda for tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Getting that time first, pretty fast. All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, first, item A on the appointments tonight, we've got a special person here with us tonight, Mr. Donnie, and we're going to recognize him tonight for his service to this community and this county. And we just want to say, I think I'm speaking for the whole board, Donnie, we appreciate your service and dedication and the humble heart that you've always had for this county, and we're just thankful that we had the opportunity to have you serve us. And we just thank your family as well for being behind you and supporting you through all these many years. And we just want you to know that. Vice Chairman Walker is going to read something, the proclamation out to you tonight. So if you will, all right, would you come forward, Donnie?
Donnie, who's you got with you here tonight?
My wife Maureen and my daughter Braedyn.
Okay. Donnie, let's see. Come out this way. Sorry, it's Lou's first meeting, so we got to figure out how to get out of here. McDowell County proclamation to honor Captain Donnie Tipton. Whereas Captain Donnie Tipton is retiring after 31 years of service with McDowell Emergency Medical Services. And whereas in 1991 he joined the agency, serving as a truck medic and worked his way up to lieutenant. And whereas in 2007 he was promoted to captain. And whereas in 2008 he became chief of the Glenwood Fire Department, a title which he still holds today. And whereas he has been an NC Level 2 EMS educator, advanced cardiac life support instructor, a pediatric advanced life support instructor, and international trauma life support instructor. And whereas he has held numerous positions at the agency as the quality assurance officer, field training officer, team lead for car seat technicians, which I've got 3 kids and they got other seats, but I still have trouble figuring out what age. He's a pro at y'all. See, you're watching, this is your man. Used to be your man, I'm sorry, he's retired. Emergency management assistant, assistant fire investigator, and whereas Captain Tipton has also served as a member of the State Medical Assistance Team, SMAT abbreviated, and Special Operations Team. Now therefore be it proclaimed, the McDowell County Board of Commissioners recognizes and extends our congratulations to Captain Donnie Tipton for his 31 years of faithful public service to McDowell County Emergency Medical Services, and wish him and his family the very best as he starts his new chapter in his life. And Donnie, I want to say personally that you've been a friend and you've been a great employee. And I know you're not going to stop with this. I know you're just so community oriented that you're going to keep serving in some capacity. And so I present this to you tonight on behalf of the board. And let's give him a hand, y'all. This is family thing right here. Many times Donnie has had to leave home, hasn't he? Even in the fire service, you know. Where's Tony?
It's okay if the director comes up.
But yeah, we need William up here too.
Hang on one second.
Going to it.
Yeah. Braedyn, can you step up? Chris and William. I can't. Thank you.
Mike, can you do a picture?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Give me another hand, y'all. We need to finish it, y'all.
We're not finished either. I think we've got something for you as well.
Mr. Chair, before he comes up, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we don't have the additional word, it's still being, it's on the way, we were notified today. It didn't arrive, and I've communicated that to Captain Tipton. I would like to take just a second and
What about the badge? We're going to move that one now.
It's in your packet. Your badge.
You can do that. There's a resolution.
Okay. We've got the resolution for the badge as well.
It's in the regular packet. You didn't send it here.
We approve that.
Did a proclamation, we need the resolution for the badge.
Very much agree with it. Resolution for the badge. That motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Donnie, thank you. Go ahead.
sorry about that. We were notified today that Captain Tipton has been approved to receive the order of the longleaf pine board. And it did not arrive in time, but we look forward to presenting that to him at a later time. It's been an honor and privilege to work alongside Captain Tipton. I came to the agency as an intern in '97, and he was instrumental in my training and has been a faithful public servant, not only for our agency, but for multiple agencies since he came to the organization in 1991. Commitment, compassion, service is our motto, and every day he upheld that, including on his days off. Donnie would be the first one to come help when things were going in the wrong direction and too many calls were coming in. Donnie was always the lifeline that you could count on to save the day. And his family, I can't thank them enough for their support, their sacrifice. And I think in closing, what struck me the most at his retirement reception is when we showed all of the family photos, the number of ones where Donnie was in uniform, and the number of holidays, birthdays, anniversaries that he sacrificed to serve the citizens of this county. He has been a humble, faithful public servant, and it's been an honor and privilege for him to work, for me to get to work alongside him in the organization. Donnie, on behalf of our entire staff, thank you for what you've done and the footprints that you've left in so many people's lives in this county. You've made a significant impact. Thank you.
Donnie, we'd like you to opportunity to say a few words if you would.
So, I'm gonna try. It's been an honor to serve this county for as long as I have. And it's been an honor that the boards, both previous and the current board, have always supported us in our endeavors. That can't go unrecognized because we can't do what we do without your support. And thank you to my family. I'm going to try here. That supported me all these years. I feel like I was called because I said it at my retirement reception. I didn't want to do this, but God saw different, and so I gave that up and followed His direction, and that's where I've been for the last 30 plus years. So thank you for the opportunity to work with the county, and thank you for what you've done for us, because we couldn't do it without you. And I can truly say that I enjoyed all 31 years of it. So, actually 32, but one of those didn't count at all. So, but I do certainly appreciate what y'all done for us over the years.
Donnie is an example of a humble, loving heart, and that's what made him so good at his job all these years. And Donnie, McDowell County, thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
There's many ministries in life. Thank you for answering the call that He gave you. All of them aren't behind the pulpit in the church. A lot of them are just to serve the people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Donnie, that was great. Moving along to item B, under appointments, this is the tropical storm Fred flood recovery representatives that are here with us tonight, and I'm going to turn it over to William and let him introduce these good men.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's an honor to have representatives from the Office of State Budget Management with us tonight, just to kind of give you an overview. Tropical Storm Fred impacted McDowell County back in August of 2021, causing substantial flooding. It was followed by significant flash flood events on October 7th. The Tropical Storm Fred event, we saw 8 to 11 inches of rainfall across the county in a short period of time. And on October 7th, we had over 8 inches of rainfall during the morning commute, which led to life-threatening flash flooding for a number of motorists and caused significant damage from both storms. Our office received over 100 damage reports after these two incidents, and through the work of many in this county, including the county manager, with assistance from the commissioners, our office, and Representative Green, McDowell was made eligible for individual assistance for private roads, bridges, and housing repairs. And this is the last time we saw this type of recovery program in McDowell County was back in 2004 during Hurricane Francis and Ivan. So a lot of people worked really hard to get this for the citizens of this county. And I'm going to turn it over to the representatives that we have. But before I do that, I can't tell you how easy it's been working with these individuals from the State Office of Budget Management. Their responsiveness to the citizens, their due diligence in providing follow-up. It's one thing to talk to individuals or talk to citizens, but it's another to follow up as you say you're going to. And the follow-through has been exceptional with this group, and much appreciation from our office. People are sometimes skeptical whether they're going to get a follow-up call, but I think the folks that you would talk to in this county would agree that they've received that follow-up during every step, and I want to personally thank Nels and Dana for doing that. So I'm going to turn it over To Mr. Nels, Roseland, he's the Deputy State Budget Director from the Office of State Budget Management, and then Mr. Dana Phillips, who is the Senior Project Manager for OSBM.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners, County Manager, and Clerk. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Nels Roseland. I'm the Deputy State Budget Director. With me, I've got Dana Phillips. And what we wanted to do is give you a kind of high-level overview of the total state funding available for flood recovery, then zero in on the housing recovery components where our team takes a primary role in managing that in partnership with our county leaders. And so on the second slide gives you a summary of the state funding allocations for Tropical Storm Fred recovery. In November of last year, the Governor and the General Assembly agreed on a budget of $124 million for recovery. Now this is separate from FEMA money, separate from other federal programs. This is state money that is a lot more straightforward to resolve, work through, manage. We're not FEMA, and they've got a very difficult job. These funds, we get to set our own parameters and rules. We got to make sure we don't pay for items twice and that kind of thing. But we're able to deploy these funds effectively and in a common sense manner that we're proud to do whatever we can to help the folks impacted in your county. So with the $124 million, the first 4 bullets noted in red cover housing recovery type assistance to residents and homeowners that have been impacted by the storm events. $23 million for home reconstructions and for home repairs and reimbursements. These are, for home reconstructions, there's, Haywood was very hard hit. So was McDowell County, Yancey County. Those are our top 3 counties hit the worst. The level of homes that have been just swept down rivers and various swept off their foundations is severe. That's not a project FEMA covers, so we're going to have funding, and we've already started multiple home reconstructions throughout the impacted area. There is $15 million for private roads and bridges. Since we opened our online application system, we have a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday office in Haywood County. We've had what we call pop-up offices here in other impacted counties. 65% of all the incoming applicants, folks needing help, it's our highest demand driver for recovery type services has been folks needing access to restore the roads and bridges that were washed away. We've got $4 million for temporary housing. That includes kind of hotel bills or travel trailers for residents. If we rebuild 100 to 150 homes, those folks are displaced now, but during that reconstruction process, there is funding available for those types of costs, reimbursements, or for us to line them up with travel trailers on their properties if that's a solution that works for them. Rental housing repairs, there's $2 million. There's a smaller amount of money for rental properties. This isn't for big apartment complexes, but with respect to folks that have rental properties that have been impacted, there is a limited funding that we can help in that regard too. When we go down this list, there's $10 million for state-funded public assistance needs. After any major declared event by the president or by the governor, FEMA rolls in and repairs public parks, public infrastructure, facilities, working with county and local agencies. If there's unmet needs after the FEMA process has worked its way through, there's funding available to support folks, local agencies in that regard. There's $1.5 million in other local agency assistance. If, say, Haywood County or other jurisdictions need another code inspector to do a lot of the inspections or contract help to help with some of the recovery work, there is funds available for that through emergency management. There's $500,000 for replacement equipment for EM offices, sheriff's departments. There's a significant funding, $50 million for the agricultural recovery assistance, for crop loss repayments, to repair fences and roads on agricultural properties. The Department of Agriculture oversees the deployment of those funds, and they work with the local extension service. They've also got a website to help in that regard. $16 million is basically the 25% share of state match for the various FEMA programs that are involved. The Blue Ridge Southern Railroad got a small grant for $1.9 million to repair railroads, facilities that were impacted, and then $500,000 for dams and spillway repairs that the Wildlife Resources Commission oversees. If you turn to the next page or slide, number 3. Well, before I go there, I want to see if there's any questions before we drill into more detail with the housing recovery type activity today. With the next slide, this shows you the major components of the $44 million in housing recovery assistance our team oversees. We have spent to date, obligated, that means awarded to individuals or under contract, $10.3 million. We have spent to date $2.6 million of the 44, that's about 6%. Combined under contract or spent to date works out to 29% of total funding across those categories. And you see the most significant activity today has been on the road and bridge repairs type activity for that type of assistance. Now what I'll do now is turn things over. Dana Phillips is our senior project manager. He's one of our go-to experts on construction and working with the various contractors. And he's done a lot of work in McDowell County and can kind of drill into a lot more details about the private roads and bridges and the various repairs, home repairs we're doing in McDowell County.
Thanks, Nels. Good evening, everyone. Appreciate the opportunity to come up here and speak to you for a few moments. So if you look on page number 4, I believe it's the 4th slide, we start talking, breaking down a little bit of information about the counties. As Nels mentioned, Haywood County and the Caruso area really took a beating. That's where there was a lot of houses destroyed, and it makes sense that you see so many applications. But look at county number 2 right behind there. It's McDowell County. So we wanted to highlight that and let you know that McDowell County took some pretty significant damage, and I'm glad that we're able to come in here and do some assistance. To date, now this was ran on March 10th. I just took a look at a few numbers earlier before coming in, and right now it said that we've completed 8 projects so far in McDowell. We've actually completed up to 11 now in McDowell. So our last number count is 11 projects complete. Okay. What is interesting again as well is you can see 65% of all of our incoming impacts right now are for roads, bridges, culverts, access to the homes, etc. We have a bit of a triage policy. The first thing we want to do is make sure people have safe access to the home. Can they get life emergency services there? Can they get the crucial things they need? Can you get a fuel truck over there? Things like that. So those are the things we really try to concentrate on. And again, having access to EMS and fire is crucial as well. On the next slide, you can see it starts talking a little bit more specifically about McDowell. You can see McDowell County, again, this is going back to March 10th. We've received 9 requests for housing repairs. Matter of fact, there's one of those, the 11 that said closed now, one of those is a housing repair that just occurred last week as well. You can see we had currently listed as 41 bridges and roads, and again, we're up to 11 complete at this point. It has been, we hit the ground running pretty hard. We actually opened up our office in Haywood County on January 10th, and Will, I believe it was early February when we did our first intake center here. And we're proud to announce that we're going to be doing an intake center in the senior center beginning tomorrow from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. and from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Wednesday as well. So we're going to be here for the next day and a half. We're going to have a few folks from our office. So anyone who has damage or they think they have damage and just want to talk to us, we encourage them to come see us. Everyone who's applied to our website has received a phone call from us letting them know that we're going to be there, and we want to encourage everybody that has any kind of damage to come see us. We want to help folks as best we can. We'll probably be doing another one at some point again, and we talked about maybe having a little office space from time to time they offered up. So I want to commend the county team and staff I've been working with. Will and his folks have been fantastic. Jay over building inspections is quite a fellow. I've enjoyed getting to know Jay and talk to Jay. And we've already had some head scratchers, but he's a great fellow and just enjoy working with that group. So again, we appreciate the opportunity to be here. Be happy to answer any questions anybody may have.
Dan, I just say that I appreciate the fact that you're coming to McDowell County to our senior center and you'll be on site. Somebody, it might be easier just to drive up than, some people like to do it that way. So thank you for coming and your staff for being here, and hats off to the state. I mean, you guys have been, and our staff too, but the partnership there, we commend both groups. And I just say as one commissioner that we've got the best staff in the state. Y'all see deal with a lot of people, but you're going to find the top staff here in McDowell County. Best in the state.
Fantastic group. Thank you.
And we're glad we can donate a little space when you do that.
We certainly appreciate it. It's been fantastic.
And hopefully the word get out that you will be there tomorrow and Wednesday at the senior center. And so we just hope that people are listening and watching, and the word gets out. There's a lot of people that are impacted by this, and a lot of people don't know that there is funding available. So hopefully the word will get out. But thank you, Dan, for coming in. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you what you do.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda item C is the destination McDowell plan. We've got Ms. Carol Price and Ken Johnson here with us tonight, so we'll turn the floor over to them.
Thank you for having us back again. We appreciate your time tonight. Before I turn this over to Tim Johnson with Destination by Design, I did want to give you an update briefly on the wayfinding site project. We're actually going to be giving an update to the city of Marion tomorrow night. We have the encroachment agreement in place with the county. So next step is to go ahead and send the full package off to DOT, hopefully by Friday. Once they get that back to us, then we'll start the request for proposal for manufacturers for signs. So I really am hoping that we'll have a sign or two in the ground before the end of this calendar year. So we're looking forward to that project. But we've been working diligently with a strategic plan. We appreciate all of your help and participation. Chris has been a great addition to our team for that committee. And Tim's going to give you an update. So we hope you can actually formally adopt the plan, and we'll go on to our next step. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Thank you, folks, for your time. I'm going to go through a quick overview of the tourism master plan process as well as the recommendations. I do touch on recommendations for Marion and Little Switzerland and Old Fort, but I'm just trying to give you all an idea of the scope of this master plan, and it includes countywide recommendations as well. You should have a copy of this, I think, so if you want to follow along. So just briefly, I'll go through the process that we followed for this planning effort. We'll talk a little bit about the resident survey results and then some recommendation highlights. So we had 6 different goals for the Destination McDowell Tourism Master Plan. One of those was assets. We wanted to identify all the assets that you have here in the county and make a list of those and include those in the plan. partners. We also were looking at the various partners, and I'll go through a more specific list of those partners a little further down. Once we looked at those assets and talked to the partners, we were identifying gaps. So what assets are you missing, or what infrastructure are you missing to take advantage of existing assets? Unity was another project goal we looked at. We wanted to bring the partners together and support projects that might have already been in progress, like the G5 Trails Collective in Old Port, and bring folks together so that everybody was on the same page with the projects and the recommendations we made within the plan. We wanted the plan to be visual. So when you look through the plan document as well as this presentation, you'll notice we have several renderings, maps, that kind of thing. We want the plan to present a vision to you folks as well as the public so they can see what could be. And then finally, we wanted the plan to offer a strategy for making these recommendations happen. So one of the first things that we did was inventory all your assets here in the county. On this slide, you can see some general numbers as far as total land area in McDowell County, the number of acres of conserved land, number of miles of Blue Ridge Parkway, miles of existing trails. The assets we categorized into 4 different categories. So we had natural resources. Those would have been things like the Catawba River. Outdoor recreation and managed areas, such as Lake James State Park, as well as the U.S. Forest Service properties. Main Street communities, which were Marion, Old Fort, and Little Switzerland, and then historic and cultural resources that were in the county. You can see a map here and get an idea of how the assets are spread out among the entire county there. Different asset types or categories are represented by different colors, 4 different colors, so you can kind of see that on the map there in front of you. Once we did that asset inventory, the next step was to engage the public. So the way we did this is we produced a video with local leaders in that video that kind of talked to the public about tourism in general and the assets you have here in the county. We also had a website portal that folks could go to see that video as well as take an online survey. So that online survey was available for all residents within McDowell County. The next slide, you're seeing some of our partners there. We had government partners such as the county, the city of Marion, Town of Old Fort, the Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Marion Economic Development Office, and then some of the other partners we had, such as the U.S. Forest Service, Friends of Fonta Flora State Trail, the Foothills Conservancy, and the Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation, just to name a few. We had focus groups. We did interviews with these folks, again, to get their input on some of the gaps that might have been missing from your asset inventory, as well as to try to promote unity between these groups. As far as the resident survey goes, we had 210 respondents over a period of a couple months. You can see on this slide that 88.1% of respondents thought that tourism was very important in McDowell County. We also asked them what categories they felt like were of great importance, and outdoor recreation was number 1, followed by downtown main streets, and then arts and culture and heritage and history. Some other questions we asked included barriers to access. One of those barriers, the top barrier, was lack of information and wayfinding signage, which you're tackling now with a wayfinding package. Some of the development priorities were hiking trails, paved greenways, outdoor event venues, and downtown public spaces. Your top 3 natural assets, according to the survey respondents, were the Blue Ridge Parkway at number 1, Pisgah National Forest at number 2, and Lake James is number 3. So once we did this analysis, we looked at your assets, we talked to all the partners, got their input, we found 5 emerging themes that seem to be coming out every time we talk to folks. One of those was partnerships. The other was downtown investment. Outdoor recreation and conservation was another one of those themes, as well as asset connectivity, and then public awareness. So all of the recommendations basically addressed one of those 5 themes. So for Marion, some of the recommendation highlights were a streetscape along West Henderson and Logan Street. So you can see in the slide the Marion study area that we looked at. They're doing great on Main Street. We didn't need to address that, so we were looking at the other areas. Some of those streetscape elements include bump outs, wayfinding, street trees, crosswalks. We had 2 areas, as I mentioned before, the Henderson Gateway and Henderson and Logan Street. The next slide, you can see the plan for that street as far as intersection improvements, entrance plazas, streetscape enhancement with trees, lighting, and banners. And then you'll see a couple of renderings in there of existing conditions and then proposed conditions in that same area. We also looked at the P-Vine and made recommendations for the P-Vine in Marion. Now, something important to understand about the P-Vine is that railroad corridor actually continues south into Rutherford County and the Thermal Belt Rail Trail. So one of the countywide projects that we identified or recommendations was to continue development of the P-Vine outside the county into Rutherford County, and Rutherford County can work up to y'all as well to make that meet. We have some examples of some signage that could be used, some branding that could be used for the P-Vine Rail Trail, as well as some drawings of trailheads at State Street. Again, renderings of existing conditions, pictures, and pictures of the renderings. We addressed the crossing at Baldwin Avenue. And then finally, in Old Fort, if you look at the framework plan I've got in the presentation there, you will notice the Old Fort Trailhead Park up in the upper right-hand corner, and then you'll also notice that some of the streets down the Main Street and Catawba Avenue are highlighted. So we looked at both of those items for Old Fort. The Fonta, Flora State Trail Trailhead was a project that we designed. They did apply for part of last cycle, the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund, and were funded. So that's hopefully a project that's going to come to life here in the next couple of years. And then again, we looked at Main Street and North Catawba streetscape elements. So in this presentation, I'm only focusing on North Catawba. So you'll notice there's kind of an aerial shot there of that area with various street improvements made, as well as some existing conditions and renderings. You'll also see that the future Mill Creek Park is outlined in this presentation. So again, existing conditions and a rendering of what Mill Creek Park could look like. It was improved as recommended in the plan. And finally, Curtis Creek Trailhead, which is just east of Old Fort, and will be serving the G5 Trail Collective Trail System. In Little Switzerland, we made some signage recommendations as well as streetscape recommendations there as well. And then finally, in the countywide connections, we focused on your trails. That seems to be one of your most significant assets. And the Upper Catawba Paddle Trail was one that we looked at. We proposed 2 new paddle accesses along that trail at Yancey Road and the North Fork of the Catawba River. We also looked at Greenleaf Park, the Pleasant Gardens access, and some of the recommendations we made there were just simply to update the signage at the entrance to show folks that it's part of the Upper Catawba River Paddle Trail and Fonta Flora State Trail. And we also recommended to continue development of that existing asphalt trail that you have there to the east towards Marion. As far as state trails, McDowell County is very lucky that they have 4 different state trails within their boundaries. So we looked at the Fonta Flora State Trail, the Wilderness Gateway State Trail, the Over Mountain Victory National Historic State Trail, and the Mountains to Sea State Trail. A lot of our recommendations for those trails was to continue and implement the planning documents that are already being created for those trails, and working with other organizations such as the G5 Trail Collective, McDowell Trails Association to continue developing those trails. And then finally, one of our recommendations that was for each of the municipalities as well as for the county was for gateway signage. So Carol and I have already met with Old Fort, Marion, and Little Switzerland about creating gateway signage for their communities. We've also met with the county manager to see if there's any interest in doing gateway signage coming into the county. So this is signage that folks that are traveling through would see. It's more than just your typical DOT green, welcome to McDowell County signs. It's something that would really get their attention and let them know where they are. And that's all I have. I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
You said one of the 5 identified themes with the number 1 of the 5 top thing was the partnerships in your presentation. And I'll echo that. We've got that between the city and the county. We have our mayor here tonight, our trails group. We have Steve here, some trails groups here. You do a lot of different presentations and a lot of work in a lot of different areas. And I think you do a very professional job, and I'm impressed with the first time I saw your first initial presentation to the group. And but I want to highlight that, and that's very important that moving forward, the partnerships remain positive and in place, and people like that, and you get things done by doing that, right? You go to a lot of places.
Yeah,
Now, do you see that predominantly in McDowell County as a big deal? I mean, a big thing?
Well, it's different in every county, obviously. And something I'll mention sort of to latch onto that is that, you know, the TDA has funded an implementation committee that Commissioner Allison is on. We meet monthly, and this is all the partners coming together, and it's been great working with this committee.
It's my fault. I'm sorry, I didn't say TDA. I mean, Kira sitting on the front row. They need the players moving forward too. Sorry there.
No problem. And we have actually funded 2 projects, one of which we hope to start working on this fiscal year, which is going to be the Phillips Landing project. And then the other one is for Old Fort. We're hoping to do some survey work on that streetscape there in Old Fort and to get that upper level work done. So we are moving forward and starting to fund part of these projects.
Carol, you're doing a great job, and you're full of energy, and we like it.
Well, thank you. I don't know about that energy thing, but I try.
Any other questions?
Any comments, please?
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion this time to approve the destination without plan.
So, the motion and second, discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, next on the agenda tonight, we have our National Forest Plan update, and we've got Mr. Nick Larson here with us tonight. Nick, you're a district ranger, and so we welcome you tonight and look forward to hearing your comments.
That's right. Thank you guys for having me this evening. So I'm Nick Larson. I'm the district ranger for the Grandfather Ranger District. I'm responsible for the Pisgah forest lands that are south of the Blue Ridge Parkway, from the Buncombe County line on over to about Lenore. So it's about 200,000 acres covering 5 different counties. Here in McDowell, that's 73,000 acres. About 23% of the county's land base is in U.S. Forest Service lands. So what I'm here mainly to kind of talk with you all about today is to make sure that folks are aware that our National Forest Plan or our Land Management Resource Plan has been released, and that final environmental assessment as well as the actual plan is out with an accompanying draft decision. So this, the forest plan itself is about a 15 to 30 year planning horizon for everything that's happening on the national forest lands over this next 15 to 30 years. And that covers absolutely everything that we do on the national forest, everything from our trails and how we get folks out into the forest, camping, hiking, hunting, our timber management, how we provide for clean water, like municipal water supplies that are coming to McDowell County and Old Fort. The plan itself, we've spent a considerable amount of time working with the public on. So we've had 8 years of public participation and involvement with local governments, with individuals, with many of the conservation interests across Western North Carolina and the South as a whole. You guys should have in your packet some briefing information about the actual plan, the reader's guide. And as you're thumbing through that, and as you're thumbing through the plan itself, you should see 4 main themes that keep reflecting themselves. Connecting people to the land is one of those themes. Sustaining healthy ecosystems, providing clean and abundant water, and partnering with others. Just like with our tourism and emergency response and everything that we basically do in Western North Carolina, how we work with our neighbors and partners is incredibly important. So that theme, those themes should be followed throughout the plan as a whole. I'm not going to lie to you, the plan itself is ginormous. You've got over 2,300 pages of documentation just in this final release. So there's a plan, there's a supporting EIS, there's I think 8 appendix. So it's a lot of information. So I'm going to start on page 2. The reader's guide that you guys have been provided is a really good synopsis of what the actual plan is itself and the intent of it. The main thing that I want to impress upon you guys, as well as any folks that you're working with, whether that's in the county or community members, is the plan is enormous. So if you have questions about it, don't hesitate for a minute to reach out to me, and I can point you to exactly where the information that you might be interested in or how it's reflected or what the intent is. So I'll give you a quick breakdown of what the plan does. So the plan breaks up the Pisgah National Forest and the Nantahala National Forest into geographic areas. Kind of follow the themes of different communities and needs of those areas, as well as opportunities. And then from there, it breaks down those geographic areas into management areas, really not unlike county zoning. So whereas in a county, you might have commercial use and you might have agricultural use, in the forest, we have areas like interface where the public is going to go into the national forest and where they're going to actually be present and see and access, whether it's a road or a trailhead or a point of interest. We have matrix areas, which are managed for a much wider range of forestry purposes, which might be habitat improvement, might be watershed improvement, providing clean water. And then there's things like wilderness areas, wilderness study areas, there's backcountry areas, all those different management areas to get at predominant themes across the landscape. All in all, there's 17 different management areas or similarities to zones. So that's the general breakup. There's rules and regulations that follow each one of those management areas and what it's intended to be managed for. The other unique thing about this National Forest Plan, which I haven't seen in any other plan that I've been part of in my career, is there's Tier 1 and Tier 2 objectives. So, and these are pretty well reflected in that reader's guide as well, but these Tier 1 and Tier 2 objectives are essentially the Forest Service trying to describe as Tier 1 what we believe we can accomplish given our current resources and staffing that we have. So just us operating by ourselves, here's what we think we can get done in Tier 1. Tier 2 is what we believe with our partners, whether that's with our tourism boards, whether it's with TIM, whether it's with G5 or the McDowell Association or William, when we're talking about community protection and things like that. That Tier 2 objectives are what do we think that we can get done working with our partners and cooperating agencies. So that's the plan in a nutshell. The point that we're at in this plan right now is, like I said, there's a final plan now. There's a draft decision. So after that plan is released, as it has been, there's a 60-day objection period. So this is that last final opportunity with the public to be able to come back to the Forest Service and say, you know what, Nick, we've talked about this and you still didn't get the point. We want to file a formal objection. So there's this final objection period that we're in right now. So there's the opportunity for people to give an objection. There's also the opportunity for people to be an interested party. So if there's something in this plan that is really near and dear to your heart and the way that we've reflected it really reflects your interests and your values and what you want to be able to see, you might want to be an interested party to ensure
That's March 22nd deadline on that.
It's 60 days from the plan release, so that sounds about right. It was one of the last Fridays in January that the plan was released. So that's our last final step to get this to a final point. If everything goes well, we should be implementing the plan as early as this summer, which will be fantastic.
Well, they've got, I appreciate it. I'm probably almost one of the oldest ones sitting here tonight, but
He is the oldest one sitting here.
But anyway, when I was a kid growing up, it was like the Forest Service land, that was a no-no. You didn't go on that, because everybody was the big bad wolf will get you if you go to the Forest Service land. But I appreciate what you guys are doing today, with the public awareness and the resources that are made available to people. And you're expressing that and letting people know that, hey, we welcome you. And I think it's a great opportunity for the citizens of the county here. And, anyone. But, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I want to add real quick that the Pisgah National Forest is the most visited of all the federal parks, correct?
The Pisgah National Forest is the most visited national forest in the country, with one exception. There's one in Colorado that's got some high-dollar ski slopes that, as they crank through people, their total numbers are more. If you don't account for ski slopes, then the Pisgah National Forest is. I'd venture to bet we're in another year of monitoring this year, so we'll have new numbers next year.
We'll be here next year.
It was close. It was only like a $500,000 difference. So
But what that does, that drives people to our area, our location, who have dollars. I love to quote Steve Pierce back there. He says for every, what is Steve, every dollar you spend on a trail, you get $1.78 in return. People coming through and spending money. So you've got some invested partners sitting there with TDA and trails and local governments, and we appreciate that. All your work, Mr. Chairman.
Good, thank you very much. Anybody else have any comment?
I do have just a couple more things to add to that real quick. So thank you guys for the support. There's two things outside of the plan that I just want to give you guys a quick update on. First, I want to thank you guys for all the support in Old Fort and all the support with the Fonta Flora Trail as it develops. And that's coming together fantastically. So we have 2 active contracts out there right now, continuing to do that work. The other thing that I want to give you guys a heads up on, and particularly William, is we should be releasing the contract real soon, or awarding the contract real soon out at Catawba Falls, so that that ability to be able to safely get people from the lower falls to the upper falls. And as you guys might remember, we worked really closely with emergency management William staff in the development of that. The work that we've done in the past has greatly reduced the burden on their responses. This is that next step to get people up. Instead of just getting people out quickly, this is that next step to be able to reduce the number of injuries, which is fantastic.
Our board has certainly supported trails in the past, and we will in the future. We're just excited that you're opening up more for us.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Next on the agenda, item B, the Fonta Flora State Trail update, and we have Miss Beth Island. Got it right. And Amanda Ellis. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners, Manager, and Clerk. My name is Beth Hiley, and I come to you tonight as the past Executive Director of Friends of Fonta Flora State Trail. My new role is the Board President for the group, and I wanted to personally thank you tonight for the funding that you gave to us back in January 2021 to kick off Friends of Fonta Flora State Trail. With your funding and other municipalities gathered in, we were able to fund me as a part-time executive director and really show state parks what happens when you have a dedicated person working on the state trail with their local governments. So we've had a great year bringing in grants and donations and just getting Fonta Flora out in front of everyone. And over the last 2 years, Judge Bob Hunter and I have been working with the Great Trails State Coalition to bring home funding for state trails, and we were very successful in that this year. You probably read for the first time ever, there's state funding for state trails in the budget. Specifically, we were able to bring home $50,000 in funding for the executive director position. That's over 2 years, so it doesn't really even fund a part-time person, but it's better than nothing, so we're getting there. We also specifically brought home $500,000 for Fonta Flora State Trail on the ground, so to actually start getting trail built. That sounds really good, but when you have Burke County with a list of projects shovel ready to go with $2 million price tag, we still could use more funding there. And we also brought home the opportunity to apply for grants with land acquisition and trail acquisition. So we had a great year in bringing home money, but we still need more. We're not going to stop there. We're going to continue to request funding from the state that's recurring and more to help fund our executive director position. But we're also going to need your continued support, your continued financial support to fund our new amazing executive director, Amanda Finn. And I want to introduce Amanda now. You may remember her from growing up in McDowell County, and she became the executive director of the Carson House. And she's only been with us a little over a month, but she's already making huge strides, and I want to let her tell you about those tonight. So I introduce Amanda Finn, our new executive director.
Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you. Nothing quite says coming home like presenting to the commissioners. So it's wonderful to see all of you, many familiar faces and a few new ones. So I look forward to working in partnership with all of you.
So I'm just going to tell you basically an update on the Fonta Flora Trail, what I've been hired to do going forward, and of course requests from you to continue to support Fonta Flora. So one of the main missions that the board of directors hired me for was to put forth a strategic plan. So I know you've heard a lot about plans today, and I'm going to follow on those footsteps because we all know how important outdoor recreation is to McDowell County. And so I'm going to access and assess community needs, what we've already started with the Fonta Flora State Trail, figuring out what underserved communities we can talk to, see how we can get them access to trail. Over 77% of people who use trails are in upper socioeconomic status and are predominantly white. So we want to make sure that trails in McDowell County reflect the diversity of the people that live in McDowell County as well. Another part of our strategic plan is going to build capacity, making sure that the Friends of the Fonta Flora State Trail can support ourselves going forward. And then also developing and continuing to develop local and regional partnerships, like many of you have discussed today, with the TDA, with the Forest Service, with G5.
City's got lots of money.
What's that?
City's got lots of money.
Yeah, absolutely. But so we're going to continue to bring grant assets to McDowell County. So the current grants, Beth gave you an overview of the grants that we have gone after and we have been awarded. The Complete the Trails Fund is the first that you'll see on this handout. Next is the part of grant for the Old Fort Trailhead and Park. And then finally, the most recent one that we are submitting tomorrow is the Dogwood Health Trust grant for a feasibility study, 77% of which will be funded for McDowell County. Future grants that we're eligible to apply for, and we'll do so with regional partnership. You see in the second category, environmental enhancement grants, RTP, regional program grants, and then the National Park Service, RCTA grants. When I disappeared from McDowell County, I went to work for the Park Service at Wasso and Washington, and I've come back now with a little bit more information, and I think we have a good chance at that one. And also your Rails to Trails, continuing to support the Peavine to the Thermal Belt Trail, as several of our participants have already discussed today. So my request for you today is that you continue, renew your support for the Friends of the Fonta Flora State Trail at $20,000 per year for the next 3 years. And I don't come to you asking this lightly. I know that you've been supportive of outdoor recreation and cultural resources in the past. You've been very generous with your support. This is only to get us to a point where we can maintain ourselves. This is not something that's going to be in perpetuity. So in our plan, in our strategic plan, we intend to support ourselves in 3 years with a combination of both state funding and our own grant writing and membership funding. On the back of your handout is a reminder that 2023 is the year of the trail as dedicated by the state of North Carolina. I hope to highlight McDowell County's successes in opening trails and ribbon cutting events in 2023. We have so much to celebrate about McDowell County. And I think that this year, asking you to think about projects that you want to be completed, things that you want to highlight about McDowell County as far as outdoor recreation and trails. Now, I know I don't have to sell you on the economic impact of trails, but I'm going to just reinforce a few numbers for you. The Virginia Creeper Trail, our neighbors to the north, bring in $2.5 million annually and $1.6 million in indirect economic activity. That's in 2004 dollars. All right, the Thermal Belt Trail from Marion Forest City that only has 13 miles completed has been quoted as a $3.4 million impact. And an anticipated, when completed, 31 miles, a $6.8 million economic impact. Now, as you can understand, the Fonta Flora Trail is 100 miles long, if you can imagine the exponential potential of this trail. Now, Burke County does have a lion's share of trail on the ground at this point in time, but we want to change that. I'm a native of McDowell County. I care deeply about McDowell County, and I want to get as much trail on the ground for McDowell County as I can. Okay, so just keep those things in mind. Again, we're working in partnership with other organizations, and we greatly appreciate your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.
Mr. Chairman, can I come up and do a little Thank you, and
Yes, sir,
a little more asking. Ashley knew that I would be here to maybe kind of clean up. You heard a lot about trails tonight, and you heard a lot about what's happened over the last couple of years. And let me thank y'all for several things. One, when we started out 2 years ago, we organized Friends of Fonta State Trail. We needed a staff person, we didn't have one. And y'all made Blair Melton available to us. And she did that along with her other county duties, and it's a tremendous help to us. And then, as you heard, you participated in the funding, which is so vital. Let me highlight, I'll try to do this as quickly as I can, kind of some of the other things that's happened. You've heard about the state money. You've heard a little bit about the Old Fort part of Trailhead and parks out there. And Tim Johnson, by the way, his company is doing the work up there for us, and Tim happens to be on the board of the Fonta State Trail, as is Steve Pierce, and he's on the executive committee. As you heard, I was president for 2 years, and I stepped back now. And we're in good hands with Beth being the new chairman, and she was willing to step away from the executive director's part-time position, and she did so admirably. And as she mentioned, and now you've got Amanda, thanks to the money that y'all put up and the money that we got from the state, and we'll be working for that. I'll stay involved, and Beth is really involved in that. And I think we can say, if it had been for Beth and Andrew Coda with Foot Hills Conservancy, and maybe a little assistance from me, I don't think we would have had that state money. Hugh Blackwell and Burke County really helped us. Dudley helped us. And Beth, through her connection with Hugh and what happened there, we got that money that all state trails are going to be able to take advantage of. We had hoped and thought maybe we were going to have a little bit more in that $500,000, but we'll continue to work on that. There are some other parks there, and let's talk about Old Fort for a minute, because that is one of the big focuses of where we're going with the trails. This and down at the lake, and then coming back in Marion will be a focus as well. And by the way, one of the things that our group got done, we assisted the town of Marion in getting a feasibility study for their connection from downtown here out to the Catawba Greenway that the state is going to be paying for. The DOT is paying for that. So we assisted with that effort. Also, the Lake James effort is going to be a major priority too. You've got the county park down there, and the trail comes through there. And I remember Blair and I met with Duke Power and I assume they're still going to do that. The lady that was handling that agreed to extend the trail not just from right there, but all the way out to the property out to Yancey Road, I believe. So that's going to help. And that park that y'all are going to have down there is going to be tremendous. The next focus also is getting from there to the Burke County line. Now that is critical to tie that in, because that can really bring in a lot of people. Back to Old Fort, what's happened up there, and there's so many things going on. The G5, 42 miles of trail that they're getting ready to do, 7 miles there at Curtis Creek. All right, we need to connect that up. Right now, we have a part of grant, and thanks to y'all, and the Friends of Fonta Flora worked on pulling all that together. Y'all put up 100,000, town of Old Fort put up 100,000, and we were able to raise through an anonymous donor another 100,000, and then the McDowell Trails put in 25,000. So we ended up having the money for that match that's going to bring in that 330,000 from the state. That's doing part of that was originally a $2 million project. We've got 60, I guess. So we're going to be able to do some things there in that park. We're going to have the trailhead inside the park for about a quarter of a mile. And so that's going to take up that money. Well, How do we get from Lackey Town Road into the park? How do we get from the park out to Old Greenlee Road that gets us out to connect up to the Curtis Creek Trailhead? And those are the things that we really need to work on right now. We've looked and we've identified, and we think we've got a pretty good commitment from the state to give us the money out of some of this trail money, state trail money, to buy that property up there where the fort is, not the fort. Gary Jones owns that property, and we've been in discussions with him, and he's going to sell that to the town through money that Friends of Fonta Flora is going to get to the town to buy that. All right, well, we've got to get in there to the trailhead, and that takes a road, and it takes a paved trail into it. We can't use part of money from that grant, even if it would do the rest of it, which it wouldn't. We can't use our Friends of Fonta Flora State Trail money because that has to be for natural trails. So we've got to find the money to do that. And so we've been talking, and of course David's been on our board. We've talked to David and Ashley and I and Steve. We talked a lot, including today. A lot of good things went on today, I think, Ashley, and we'll talk about those tonight. He can brief on y'all and the connector project that's with the state DOT and some things I think are looking good there. But we need to apply for another part of grant. Normally we wouldn't be able in a position to do that. And we think we're in a decent position this year. Beth's on that board, but she has to recuse herself when it comes up. But we've got some other good friends and supporters on there. And one of the things I need to ask y'all about, we need to ask you about tonight, we've talked to the town of Old Fort. We'll be meeting with them again, I hope this week, because we've got a deadline there. May 1st is the deadline for applying for a part of the grant. We need to apply for a $500,000 part of the grant to do the rest of what it would take to go from Lackey Town Road, that road in there. It needs to be a paved, about a 24-foot road. The town doesn't have the money to put that road in. They're not getting enough Powell bill funds to do that road. And then we've got to get the trail, and that needs to be paved in to connect up to the paved trail inside. So that's where part of that part of the grant would come from, or would go to. And then inside, we'd enhance that park because there's a lot to still do that the old Fort residents up there want done. And then from the end of that paved trail, we need to get out to Old Greenlee. And we've talked, and Steve and I have been up there and walked it, and with Melvin Lytle, who's on the town board. Y'all know Melvin, and he's also the chief of police and head of utilities, and so he's very knowledgeable. And we've identified the way to get out, cross the railroad, through Old Fort's property, cross that Curtis Creek there, and get out to the Old Greenlee Road, which then hopefully we can get an easement from ARIA to go up the side of it to get over to 70. So all they got to do is just cross 70 and get across there. If we don't get that easement, it just have to be along the road. Now from the Lackey Town to Greenlee, that'll be part of the state trail, we think. Regardless of which way we go, and we don't know yet which way we go from Marion to get to Old Fort. So she mentioned the feasibility study. Beth and I have been working with through Gateway, and they've been really, really helpful to apply to Dogwood for that $90,000 feasibility study, which is going to get McDowell County in a good position to be able to get these grants. If you don't have a feasibility study and a way to show them you've got the ability to put the trail on the ground, and the legislature and the state parks, and I had the opportunity to meet with the director of state parks, Wayne Patterson, this week when I was in Raleigh and other matters, and the secretary of Natural and Cultural Resources, and they know about what's going on up here, and with the Friends of Fonta Flora, and they're excited about the possibilities for McDowell County. So we need to do that grant. Timing is critical because of the May 1st deadline. And so what we're looking at is to ask the town of Old Fort to put up $160,000, for McDowell County to put up $160,000. We think we can get Friends of Fonta Flora money for $100,000. Plus, we also think we can use the matching of $80,000, approximately, or whatever it's going to take up there to buy that Jones property. And together with all that, have enough to be able to do that part application.
That was a $500,000 match grant.
It is. And Chairman
What
Braedyn,
feasibility study, how much was it again?
what's that?
You quoted the feasibility study.
The feasibility study we've asked for, this is from the Dogwood Trust, is $90,000. And Amanda has worked with Dogwood in getting that submitted with Gateway, which is part of Dogwood. Y'all probably know how that works. Dogwood's got most of the money. But, so that's going in, and we had an email today that said she hoped to know something within about 30 days on that. That puts us in a position to do a feasibility study for all of McDowell County for the Fonta State Trail, plus 2 areas in Old Fort to look to connect up there, and plus to look at a connector from Catawba Falls into Old Fort. I mean, that could be huge for this county. So, and then of course the feasibility study will look at how we get from the trailhead, Lackey Town there, through town, over and to Camp Greer, and up through the new section of the Pomeroy State Trail that was just built and dedicated. And then we've got some little gaps in between on each side of that to tie into Point Lookout, which gets us to Ridgecrest. Another thing we're going to try to get some state money for, purchase out of that land purchase money, is for a trailhead up at Ridgecrest, which we need a trail at the top of the trailhead up there at the top of Ridgecrest, and that would help Old Fort and McDowell County tremendously, as it would town Black Mountain and Vaughn. So all these things are going to be going on. And as you heard Beth and Amanda say, Burke County is way ahead of us. And that's because of 2 reasons. One, they got a $10 million grant from Duke Power when all this started. So they had the seed money there to do that. The other thing is, they have a dedicated person who works full-time on the trails for Burke County, Shane Frisbee. And they're talking about giving him another. That's the other thing that McDowell County, in our opinion, really, really needs. You need a person like a Shane who's working on these trail projects, who's managing the trail projects, who's getting the next one ready, who knows trails, who can work on the grants. We can help identify grants, but you need somebody that's doing. We need somebody right now that can be working on that Old Fort Park grant. We've got, 6 weeks and to try to pull that together. Now, fortunately, we've done one, and some of that stuff still exists. We need some more, but and we'll have to figure out how to do that. If y'all approve that money to apply and say let's apply, part of that land is in the county, part of it's in Old Fort. But once you leave the sewage treatment plant, then that's county land out to Old Greenlee there. So we need a dedicated person, and Steve and I talked to Ashley about if you don't do that, you're going to continue to be behind. In Burke County, as we mentioned, the state and parks want this money to be able to on the ground so they can show the legislature that they made good use to it. And so if we're not ready and don't have our projects ready to go, then Burke County is going to get most of that money. And they've already got a 7-year plan. They've got it laid out. I hope you have a copy of that. If you don't, we'll get you one. But it's impressive. And they've been able to do it because they've had dedicated people working strictly on trails, including sometimes when you have to get easements. But all those things going on are key. If you do those 2 things, you're going to be able to make tremendous headway in the next 1 to 3 years. If you don't, you're going to be behind further. There's a lot going on in all these different places. And don't forget, Old Fort, we've got McDowell Tech's project. I understand they worked out the lease with the town now, and things seem to be moving along to get that EDA grant that they've got to have to finish that building. So all these things are going on. And Carol's group has been a tremendous help. They've been the ones that put up the money to do the surveying up there of this property and help us get those houses out. So somebody needs to be working on all these things. I'm backing out, and I'm going to still be available to do what I can when I can, but It's really, really, I can't stress how important it is for these things. If we don't do them, I don't know what will happen. And so let me stop. That's more than probably you wanted to hear. But, and I'll answer any questions. I'm sure so these other folks here that's supported. I want to thank Ashley for his assistance in all this. He's been very receptive to all the things we've been talking about, but y'all are the ones that have to make the decisions.
Well, actually, will be coming to us with recommendations, I'm sure, and we look forward to trying to help y'all we can.
All right, well, thank you. Y'all done it in the past, so it's these are bigger asks, and I know things are going on. And of course, we've talked about some ARP money put in trails, and this would be a good place to put some of that, to find some money, but hopefully y'all can do it. The timing is, especially on this party grant, it's really critical, and it is for this position too. And that would be part of grant spread over 2 or 3 years, the way that thing will work out. And we already finished most of this year in the budget. So,
We'll see what you're going to do.
Thank you.
He'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Bob. Now we got. Mr. Mayor, would you like to say a word before you leave? We welcome you here tonight. We're always glad to see our own honorable mayor.
Thank you. I just wanted to congratulate you, all of you, on a beautiful new boardroom and a fantastic location for your offices here. It's very exciting. I wanted to welcome you to this part of town. And this is going to be a wonderful way that you can accommodate more people, and it's just very, very positive. And I wanted to come.
A few years ago, we couldn't have been this close to you guys over there. There would have been rock throwing.
There would have been. Not anymore.
Not anymore.
There's flowers and birds and butterflies. But thank you. And I just wanted to say congratulations, and I'm proud of you for what you've done.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm super excited for your renovation move too.
Thank you.
That was a smart move.
It'll take us about 1.5 years, but we are very excited. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Okay. Now we'll go to old business, out of the old business, start out with the National Opioid Litigation.
Yes, sir. Just a really quick update. You received notification a couple of weeks ago. There were press releases sent out by multiple entities to announce that more or less that the national opioid lawsuit that has been in the federal court in Ohio is pretty close to wrapping up. Pretty much all of the parties have agreed to the national settlement. There will be probably one of the holdouts, I'm sure, but essentially what you'll have is the suing parties are settled with the defendants there. And the anticipation, as you see in the press release, is that maybe as soon as May, there will be payments made to the litigants. And so North Carolina is a little bit different, where you had, I believe, about 73 counties, somewhere in that range, and some municipalities that sued the opioid distributors. And the way the state worked out a process, being Attorney General's office, the Association of County Commissioners, and others, all 100 counties are participating in a memorandum of understanding, as well as 17 municipalities, where all of those entities will receive funds. The state will receive actually a small share, but the lion's share will go to the local governments, with the hope that the closer we are to the problems and the issues, the more good that will come out of that funding. So
that funding is restricted.
It is restricted, and so you have approved a process that will be collaborative with Freedom Life, the Substance Use Coalition, Danny and Angela with those two entities will be here next month. talk about some of that process getting kicked off. And so again, that's restricted funds. We can't use it to do anything other than address the issue at hand. So what will happen, again, you're pretty familiar that next month we'll talk about this process. There will be a recommendation made to this board for you to then approve, and then funds will be allocated at that point. So very exciting. It's unfortunate that it, of course, this all happened, but it's fortunate that the settlement funds will be shared as a community and will be good.
And hopefully, we have a esteemed sheriff this tonight, and hopefully, when those funds are put to work, it will change people's lives and get them off drugs, which means less interaction they have to have with their sheriff's department.
Okay, thank you for that. Next on the business is item B, the broadband expansion. Mr. Webelos, all around.
Yes, sir. So I notified you a couple of weeks ago that I reminded you that we had applied for a federal grant last summer for the NTIA department in Washington. That was about a $6 million grant that was turned down. There were only, I think, about 17 applications approved in the whole country. Lenore County down east, they get a grant, which is great for them, but for us, it's disappointing, of course, when we don't get a grant. But it does allow us to move forward with some other options, which is maybe just as important. So with the state budget that was referenced earlier, that was passed in November, there were 2 programs that were identified for counties and the providers to apply for. The first is the GREAT grant. If you pay attention, the GREAT grant has been around for a while, but this is the GREAT grant turbocharged essentially. So the state's put in over $300 million of ARPA funds into this program. I've spoken with both of the content providers, being Spectrum and Optimum. They both indicate they will apply for this grant, which is due in early April. They have both asked for support, letters and things like that, of course, but also financial support. When we first talked about broadband about 9 months ago, you asked, can we provide funding for broadband? I said, no, you cannot currently. But as we talked about at that point, there was a lot of legislation going back to when Representative Dobson, Commissioner Dobson was in office, and probably way before that, efforts to loosen up some of those restrictions. That happened in the budget process. You are now allowed to obligate federal and state grants, as well as non-directed funds to broadband. So both companies have asked for any level of support you might be able to commit for applications that are due.
I thought we'd already done a letter of support.
You have done letters before. They're asking for financial contribution
For assistance in filling out the grant.
towards actual construction. So this is
would that be a matching dollar, or any dollar we can put up, they match it with their dollar, right?
right. So the way the program is set up, the state through the federal funding requires a match, and so match is made either with it would definitely have to be with the company's contribution, but counties do get, and the providers get points if there are contributions made from counties. Specifically tied to the ARPA funds, you get extra points if there are contributions from ARPA.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion at this time that we allocate out of the soon-to-be deposited $4.4 million coming in the second go-around. $1 million of that to be set aside for expansion of broadband within McDowell County, and the 2 companies would apply and be dispersed out. There'll be a process, correct?
Yes, sir. And then talking to so with the some of the guidance from the Department of Information Technology, they are saying that some counties are doing matches and they're based on the number of households passed and people that would actually benefit from it as far as how matching funds are set up. So something could be set up along the same line. And not just necessarily, unless you wanted to, not just 500,000, 500,000, but if one company was doing the lion's share.
Households.
Right.
For example, when they did the NTIA spectrum, came in with 5,600 homes plus.
Right.
And Opioid came in with 890 some homes. So in that proportionate, it could be proportionate.
I was over many friendly men.
So I do recommend $1 million, but I do think it doesn't need to be split 50-50. I do think it needs to be
What's on the investment?
on the investment by the company.
Okay, I'll amend my motion to state, as Commissioner Ellis has stated, and thank you, sir, that it would be based upon the investment of the company as to the amount they would get, the percentage they would get. Up to $1 million to be spent by whomever would make the greatest investment.
I'll second that. Got a motion second, any other discussion on that? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Wood. Next on the agenda, item C, the American Rescue Plan, lead us off, Mr. Wood.
Segue perhaps, so you do have the, after the cover memo, this is the amendment that you approved last month. And so the unallocated portion is a little over 4.1 million. And so that 1 million could come off of that. If you look at the other line items over the next couple of pages, most of what you see is reference the Stacy Hill project. That project is complete, and but we don't have all the final invoices in, so it may be less than $150,000, for example. So that could come back to the unobligated pot, as it were, once those invoices are made. So we will update this and present amendment 3 for you next month with any other changes that will be necessary based on those adjustments. So no action required at this point since we'll need to make some other changes.
Good. Any comment?
Got a question, Mr. Chairman. With the new release of the ARPA funds, are we allowed to, this is for future reference, are we allowed to fund like salary raises? Are we allowed to fund that and then take it back later?
So,
or pick up the cost later?
Right, okay. So what has happened, I believe it was January, when the finance director, the final rule was adopted by U.S. Treasury, and we notified you all that earlier in the year. They freed up entities that received less than $10 million, essentially cut the strings more or less on what could be spent under ARPA. So before that, if you asked me that question, it might be a yes, but about that many or longer caveats. Now it's a little bit shorter list. Without getting a lot of the details of where we're going. There's a lot more flexibility is the point than there was 6 months ago. So that could be done on the front end, the back end, of course, if any recurring expense requires the back end of handling that expense with other revenues, of course. So most of, if not all of what you see there is one-time expenditures. So a very long answer, maybe a short, some question.
Any other comments? All right, item D, building project, Mr. Wood.
Yes, sir. Very quick, the North Main building, which you're in right now, of course, this part is more or less complete. There's still some finishing touches to be made with technology, furnishings, those sorts of things. Downstairs, a little bit different story. Walls, ceilings, flooring still need to be finished. The anticipated move-in date is hopefully May. All of the staff will move in at one point. We're not going to split up where we are now. And the annex, that office below the senior center, we vacated at that time. Emergency Services headquarters, you've got a photo aerial Mr. Kehler provided on this. They have been inspecting rooms as they go to make sure any punch list items are caught. There are still some fairly significant items such as the backup generator that are on order. Still hoping for a move-in date in May as well. So we'll have a lot of ribbon cuttings perhaps along the same time.
You say May?
Hopefully. Okay. Some things change. Not for lack of effort.
Based on where the cargo ship's at?
Perhaps. The services building, again, you renamed the old administration building on 60 East 4th Street. It's now the services building, so that's an old habit that will be hard to let go of. You've previously discussed, it's going back quite a while, so not recently, but doing some renovation there with like the HVAC is original from 1976. Perhaps doing some renovation there with a new HVAC system, the ceiling tiles, lighting, a lot of those things were from that era. The state did provide $350,000 in the state budget for renovation. Seems to be an area that could use some attention, so staff would recommend focusing some efforts there with those funds.
Mr. Wood, remind the board, the goal was to move probation and parole. They are on their current location, correct?
Two locations.
Two locations, right. So the goal is to get them on the second floor of that building, correct?
That's right.
All right. So where are we at in that process?
One of the outstanding issues was understanding the HVAC system, if there was going to be some major work done there, because a few doors could be changed, and a few, carpet and paint. But what we didn't want to do is have 18 or 20 people come in, and then all of a sudden you have to move out again because of some renovation work that happened. The other issue, honestly, was discussion about parking. Most of those probation parole officers have a work card and a personal card, and so we currently do not have the parking for both on top of what we have for our staff and court expectations.
Even with the new parking lot, it wouldn't be sufficient, correct?
With the one that was built in Garden Street, it's still a little bit tight, it's not a lot. So court days, you probably get complaints from staff and visitors and others just where all the lots are filled, so it's perennially a challenge there. So that's been one of the holdups for us, is getting the space ready, but also the parking.
Another thing, I'd like for people to understand that, the investment that we made on this building here that we're in, I think was a great investment in the sense that, we will take the other building that we were using and we will rent that out, and it will pay for this building in just a few years. So I think it's a good, wise investment for the county, and we'll it'll pay for itself.
Mr. Chairman, I'll add to what the chairman said. This building, we purchased it for half of the value. And we've got 12,000 square feet that will be addition, that will be once completed up and downstairs, correct, Mr. Williams?
That's right, that's right.
Which if we try to do a 12,000 square foot building today, you can spend a lot of money.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Wood.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the amount requested for the services building with a budget to be brought back to the board showing where the money is being at within that process.
Second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
vote.
And I had one more item, and this is Station 1. And I promise I've been trying for a while to have our architecture firm with Holland Hammer have someone come up. But with the retirement of Chuck Hammer, it's been very hard to get availability because of all the projects. And so I did have a date scheduled this Friday for Patrick and Curry to kind of look at that building. That was still of interest to the board to have that evaluation done. It's just taken a long time to get working in this schedule. That's still of interest.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion right now that we bulldoze it once they move out. Here's why. You're going to do parking, you need parking, probation, parole, and that's going to happen in the next probably year. The clerk, the clerk said to me Saturday that right now there's only one handicap parking spot around that courthouse for the public to utilize. And so she mentioned lack of parking for handicap persons who need that space. And that building is, how old is that building?
78.
78, so it's an old building, it's a metal building. And also, another reason why I'm making this motion is this. We have in DSS, we have offices that have 2 people per office, and that was a real issue when COVID hit. And so now, that's probably the next area as far as the building that we're here, where we need to go next. And so they're already tied on parking over there. And so if we do any addition to that building, off to the right of that building would be the way to go. Either going right or going up and right. You're going to need a place to park. So my motion, I'll make a motion, y'all can do what you want to read it, but I'll make a motion that we have staff, when the move is complete, have staff contract out to, and bring it back to the board to have that building raised, and then give the staff recommendation on 2 things, a flat parking lot or also a parking deck of some sort that would be fee-based for the general public and for county employees to be free, of course. And that's why I'm making that motion based on those 4 or 5 things right there.
I'll second the motion.
The motion is second. Discussion, I'd like to make a comment. I essentially didn't want to see the building tore down because I thought that, there was a possibility the county could use it for something else. But, doing a little deeper investigation of the building and taking a closer look at it, and I went down and saw William the other day, and we talked about it. And construction is a little bit of my expertise, I guess, but it would take a lot of money to save the building. Basically, it's about the only thing that's worthy left in the building is the frame. We talk about new roof, all inside, everything. It would cost. It'd be like building a new building. So
essentially, you're saying.
yeah. So based on that, I agree with Chairman Walker. Vice Chairman Walker on that. Any other discussion?
I agree with the city because we do have to have parking, and that building has been there for years. I mean, it's been well used.
And the growth of the downtown too, Mr. Chairman. With the growth of the downtown, and since COVID's moved on, they'll be doing their festivals and kicking in high gear with that. And we went in and partnered with the city when the city tore down the Hill House there. And so we were partners at 50-50 on that parking lot there. And I would like to include, amend my motion that we have a discussion with the city on partnering on a parking lot or parking deck, whatever the 2 parties, whatever you and Mr. Boyer would like to recommend.
Second. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye. Okay. All right, that was the last building project. Mr. Wood, the water expansion.
Thank you. Some time ago, you met in response to receipt of the $11 million in state funding to the county for water system improvements. We evaluated, being staff, engineer, and board in that order, how to best utilize that funding based on timeframes, project costs, et cetera, and operating costs. And your prior direction was to allocate that funding for expansion of our current water system to build up our customer base in the Depot area. In our last discussion of this topic, you talked about, or you directed that staff meet with our engineer and bring back some areas of interest and technical areas that could be served technically with water. You mentioned Nebo, but you also indicated you had some interest expressed to you in serving the area around West Marion School. So Mr. DePoyster and I met with our engineer about 2 weeks ago. We had sent him ahead some possibilities, essentially just roads around those areas in order to do some cost estimates. And unfortunately, it costs a lot more to build water lines than it did a year ago, but going back 10, 15 years, when I was cutting my teeth on it, it's phenomenal what it costs now. I can remember it was $60 a linear foot to run a water line, and now it's about $120 a linear foot. So $11 million does not go that far like it might have gone at some time. So in meeting with Mr. Dow with McDowell Associates, what he is recommending, at least at this point, is that we continue with the design work that is happening on what we call phase 1 of the Nebo expansion. So this is around Jimsy, Jack Corpening, Old Number 10, in that area on the north side of that community. But he is recommending, and staff is, that we continue to invest funds in the Nebo community and essentially work our way back towards the city of Marion around Old Number 10 Memorial Park Road, with the idea of coming back towards 70 and looping back on 70 and essentially having from more or less city limits eastward. So that is very preliminary right now. Some of those discussions, of course, if I can get ahead of what the board would do. The discussion about the school, the recommendation, there is a grant due in May to look at that first and see if there's a grant there that would fund service to that area where there may be some need as well. So an action item, at least at this point, might be to seek out the grant funding.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the design as our county manager is requesting the water line extension serve the Old Number 10 Memorial Park area, road areas, and then approve and submit the grant to see if we will submit for the grant for the West Marion School, West Marion Elementary School with water, so we can get water.
Second.
The motion second. Any other discussion?
I'd just like to make sure that we do continue to look at the area, and don't put it on back on forever.
Agreed. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? New business tonight. Item A, Recreation Center renovation project. Mr. Wood, lead us on.
Just a quick update on the Recreation Center project. This is, again, state budget funded. That's $4.5 million that was secured specifically for that site. So if someone asks you, can you spend some over here, some over there, it's specifically tied to that geographic location. So staff, being Mr. Marsh and myself, are meeting with the architect on Wednesday, being Mr. McCurry with Holland Hammer, He has worked on quite a few projects in Cleveland County, and so we're going to look at some of the sites he's worked on there, recreation type projects, and then we're going to meet and go over the existing plans and essentially just do a little bit of brainstorming so where you're not wasting your time drawing on pieces of paper, and then come back some, based on the input you've made, do the little sketches, and then bring back something a little bit better than scratch paper for you to look at in the next few meetings. So hopefully it might take some time to get some of that worked out, but I'd like to be back, if not next month, the month after, maybe some actionable things for you.
Which project?
This is the recreation center.
Recreation center, okay, because I'm not sure. So, and we have been behind because of Chuck, and we're waiting for Kev, of course. One thing that, you asked for thoughts were, I would definitely like to see price both ways, the indoor pool and replace the current pool outdoor. Both have that option to see what indoor would do when you're going through the process.
If there's any, and there's been some discussion already, but a lot of that's been sort of sent ahead to Mr. McCurry, so he's taking some of that input, and it's not speaking out for everyone with your piece, it's just a starting point, so we'll get that going for you. I did pass out a little bit of a last minute thing, and I apologize for that, but didn't want to delay another month on something that maybe could move forward. You had previously, a couple months ago, authorized some enhancement at Maple Leaf. So we passed out a memo about some of our efforts the last couple months. Fred Blackley, who has worked hand in hand with Chuck Hamrick for, I think he said, about 30 years in the landscape architect field, has worked on the drawing that's attached, but really the whole complex. He has some thoughts for all kinds of nice and great amenities there. But this is just focused on the area where you've talked about having picnic shelters and eventually a playground. And so we can go ahead, if you would like to, go ahead and put a bid package together that would clear out that site, prepare it for shelters now, and plan for playground in the future. That's okay. This is a big.
So you're saying that in what we would approve, he's not included the playground?
He shows an area for it, but it's more than, we could bid it out, but it would probably be a specialty focus at this point where you do it a little bit later. So the first phase might be site prep and fencing, landscaping, sidewalk, shelters.
So when we get constructed, finished, then we can turn the playground.
Right.
Okay. I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, that we approve the plan, or have staff go ahead and proceed with the bid documents.
Second. Motion is second, any discussion? All in favor of that, please? Say aye.
Mr. Chairman, I'll mention, it was intended to be on the agenda, but the shooting range project, Mr. Marsh is here if you want something more detailed than I can offer, but the contractor, like every project we've had, has had a few equipment delays, but he has everything on hand to finish out the project now. So we're still a couple weeks out from being completely finished. So we're hoping for an April opening. It will definitely be a big to-do when all you can be there for ribbon cutting and public notice and occasions and what have you, however you'd like to do. But it's all the pieces are lining up to have a grand opening and hopefully about a month. So very excited about it.
One other thing, Chad, I mentioned it to Mr. Wood earlier, but
we need to add to the regulations out there that you cannot bring a loaded firearm onto the premises.
Yes, sir, it's in there, sir. We designated as a cold range, which we quantify what we determine to be a cold range, which means from your vehicle at any point to the
Specify that.
Yes, sir, I'll review it and be sure.
Make sure it's specified.
Yes, sir.
It's
I'm pretty sure it is.
in the rules, but in talking about the introductory video that will be done, to make
We can also do it.
make sure
It's also in the script, sir. Yes, sir.
Thanks, sir.
that's all I have on recreation.
Mr. Chairman, I would say that anywhere that we go as commissioners, that is one of the biggest, first things we get asked is, when is the shooting range going to be open? And Chad, you're going to have a lot of activity up there, my friend, when that thing is dedicated. And I would say too, that I appreciate the chairman. When Burke County was going through the process for a shooting range, there was the area that they were looking to locate it at, some neighbors started complaining and protesting, so to speak. And so through conversations, the chairman got wind of that and set off, being a gun enthusiast as he is. He has one or two guns, I believe. But anyway, he really got excited and brought it to the rest of our attention and said, we need to try to recruit this thing. So hats off to the chairman for being proactive on that. And as a result, we're going to have one of only 3 in the state here in our county. And it's going to be a draw originally, and tourism dollars will be spent here in McDowell County. And we love people coming to our county and spend money.
Absolutely. I'm excited about it. And it seems like everyone else is. As Dave said, everywhere you go, there's when's the range up? When's the range up? So I think it's a great thing. And appreciate the work that Chad's done with it. Chad, he's a boots on the ground kind of guy. He gets out and makes things happen. So we appreciate the work he does as well. Okay, moving along. Next on new business is the administrative items, Mr. Williams.
Would you like me to go through each item, or would you?
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, we approve GF 28 through GF 33, ENT2, the EMS write-offs totaling $30,263.77, the waiver of the $150 late fee for the gentleman who had medical condition. And I'll make that motion and come back to the hygiene policy.
Second. Okay, got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Appreciate that. We've got a large agenda tonight, so we need to try to whittle away at some of the time if we can. We're going to be here to midnight. I wish we've got Chuck Abernathy to speak.
So that left EMS write-offs and a waiver for.
I got EMS write-offs.
I got that. Did that include
the dollar amount too?
That include occupancy waiver as well? Just making sure.
We appreciate you being on top of it.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Williams, tax matters.
We have a hygiene policy.
Yeah.
So the transit director had asked for, it's an uncomfortable topic, but there are times where passengers, especially frequent ones, might have some issues where it makes it difficult in a very small vehicle for other passengers as well as staff, and so he would like to be able to address those issues directly with passengers under those certain delicate situations.
Excluding board.
I make a motion to approve that.
Got a motion.
Second.
And the TAB, I believe, endorsed this Transportation Advisory Board.
Discussion.
And in a lot of counties and transportation providers have this in place anyway.
Especially your small,
It needs to be.
on a larger vehicle, it's very much an issue.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. You opposed? Okay.
I'm sure he needs good discretion. I'm sure.
Yes.
He's listening, Greg.
Yes, he is. Now, Mr. Williams, tax matters.
Tax matters are routine. These are your, you have 4 write-offs.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve tax matters as presented.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Board appointments. Madam Clerk, floor is yours.
We got in the last day, I already sent out the agenda packet to you from the JCPC, it's requesting the approval of Tiffany Morgan as the juvenile defense attorney representative.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve Tiffany being representative.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I will advertise the other vacancies and bring them back next week.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Next, we have citizen comments. If there was anyone here that we have about 3 minutes to speak on citizen comments, please come up and sign. All right.
That is all.
That's all. Okay. Mr. Staff reports, anything there?
I think I've said enough.
I have too. Okay, all that's left is a closed session meeting, and then we adjourn right after that. So anybody that wants to build, that won't be around